Catherine's here. She's supposed to be talking about the markets and how trade's doing in Asia, but we're actually talking about toffee crisps, aren't we?
I think we could market that we saw in
Looked
that video
great, didn't
there.
it?
I would
Did great.
definitely eat it.
How's the market in sort of more financial terms
Okay,
doing
the
then?
less chocolatey market. Well, trade in Asia has been carrying on in its good kind of vein. So we've seen the Nikkei in Japan edging up only by a little smidge there, as we can see. It doesn't look like it's that drastic, but the Nikkei actually hit an 8-month high earlier on in the day before slipping back a little. But it's really building on stability in Europe and some positive data last week from the US. So kind of good news for them over there. Hang Seng and South Korea's Kospi also trading up. The Shanghai Composite very slightly down there.
And staying in Asia, specifically, in fact, in China, the head of the IMF, as we were just trailing there, Christine Lagarde, she's been talking about the state of the world's economy. What's she got to say?
Yeah, well, she's keeping up the theme of cautious optimism that we've heard from so many of the world leaders over the last few months. And in her words, we've stepped back from the brink, but we mustn't let ourselves be lulled into a false sense of security. So some quite sort of prudent advice there from Christine Lagarde. She's also had a few words for China, talking about them sorting out their trade imbalances. Let's take a look.
Calling the world economic recovery a marathon, not a sprint, the head of the International Monetary Fund offered cautious words as she addressed politicians and business leaders at a conference in Beijing.
The world economy has stepped back from the brink, and we have causes to be a little bit more optimistic. But optimism should not give us a sense of comfort, and certainly should not lull us into a false sense of security.
Lagarde said policy actions taken in the wake of the global financial crisis were paying off, with US economic indicators looking more upbeat and European efforts to solve the debt crisis in Greece easing the threat of a default. But the IMF chief warned public and private debt still remained high in many countries and pointed out the threat of rising oil prices to global growth. The cautious optimism comes as Lagarde attends a 2-day forum on China's development. She praised Beijing for its leadership and adept policy skills in helping the global recovery, but said it needs to focus on 3 areas.
First of all, we think that it's important that China can continue to support growth. Second, to continue shifting the drivers of economic growth away from investment and exports and towards domestic consumption. And third, China could certainly improve the household livelihood.
Lagarde also said China's yuan could become a reserve currency in the future, but added the country needed a roadmap for a stronger, more flexible exchange rate system.
Now, news of the oil company Chevron in trouble for an oil spill. This is off the Brazilian coast.
Yeah, the company's executives individually could end up paying for this. Brazil is looking to press charges against 17 executives, and they've actually barred them from leaving the country while the investigation is underway. Prosecutors say charges could include things such as environmental crimes. Don't know exactly what that means. Chevron declining to comment so far. Now, if you've not been keeping up on your oil spill news, this all pertains to an oil spill at the end of last year with more than 400,000 litres coming out of an undersea well. Brazilian Environmental Protection Agency has got an investigation going on, and they think that there could be a new leak that they want to hear information about. So Chevron obviously wanting to avoid getting involved in legal problems, and also financially this could prove very expensive for them.
Got some breaking companies news now, and a good opportunity Catherine's got for us for a pun.
Yes, the delivery service UPS is spending a packet, buying up one of its big rivals. Not bad for this time of the morning. They're acquiring the Dutch company TNT Express for 5.16 billion euros. TNT is actually Europe's second biggest delivery company after DHL, and this deal has been in the offing for a while. TNT turned down an offer last month, so this is the biggest acquisition that UPS has ever made, in fact, and it beat off some competition from FedEx as well. So UPS probably feeling very pleased with itself to start the week.
Catherine Nicholson wrapping that story up perfectly. Oh dear, that's getting bad to worse. Right, latest on the Eurozone crisis, how it's being felt on the ground.
Yeah, so obviously this is something that we've been talking about for a very long time. We know Greece, Spain, Portugal and Italy all feeling the pain of those deficit-cutting measures. The government's borrowing costs, as we know, have gone up. We're looking into how this is affecting small businesses on the ground, finding it hard to get credit and move things on.
Last summer, when this steel firm requested a €1.5 million loan from the bank, It appeared to be a formality. The money was needed to buy raw materials at a competitive price and at a time when stocks were at their lowest level for 3 years. But OMV Ventura was left bitterly disappointed a few months later when the bank refused to issue the loan. It's a familiar story for businesses up and down the country.
The attitude of the banks is not the same as before. It's no longer about taking risks for them, but limiting them, and even, when it's possible, to share the risks with other banks in order to be less exposed. So it's really a clear sign of worry.
Because of the high cost of refinancing, banks are balking at many requests for loans, even from businesses turning a healthy profit. Mario Monti, who replaced Silvio Berlusconi as Prime Minister in November, has won plaudits for restoring credibility to the Italian government, but much remains to be done.
At a moment of serious structural crisis, which calls for deep changes, investments in innovation are put aside. I say that if the situation does not evolve, there could be serious repercussions for the competitivity of the Italian industrial system.
Italy's public debt mountain is in excess of 1,900 billion euros, or around 120% of GDP, and yet borrowing conditions for the government have eased since Monti took office. For businesses, however, the credit crunch is still very real. According to a study late last year, almost 1 in 4 Italian entrepreneurs have difficulty finding loans, up from 1 in 6 just a few months before.
Let's bring you a few other business stories. And safety problems with the world's biggest passenger plane are back in the news. Airbus engineers have found wing cracks in 67 of its A380 Super Jumbos, and the latest reports are that the problem's going to be a lot more expensive than predicted for its parent company EADS. Reports over the weekend say the cost is set to spiral from just over 100 million euros into several hundred million euros.
The French plane maker Dassault has been giving some confident statements about a huge deal with India. The company is the preferred bidder for a defence contract for 126 fighter jets. Now, Dassault's CEO has been telling the French press he's confident the whole thing will be signed off within 6 months, but knock-on effects for industry within France could be limited, with many of the planes set to be built overseas.
And some news from the tech sector now, because investors in Apple might be about to get their first dividend payment in quite some time. The company's going to be announcing what it wants to do with its cash pile of over $97 billion. Paying a dividend could help Apple attract more to various investment funds, but the company might go down the acquisitions route and buy up hardware or software companies. And finally, the Occupy Wall Street protesters back in the news, promising to start annoying the big businesses and powers that be once again.
Yeah, the Occupy Wall Street movement celebrated its half birthday at the weekend, 6 months of existence. We have noticed they have been a little bit quiet of late. They were in the news a lot for a while, but now it's spring and the weather's getting better. They're promising to pick up the momentum, start making noise again. They've announced some issues that they want to prioritise, including student debt levels, the presidential election in November, what they want to get out of that. But it has to be said, even with the movement, within the movement, people have been expressing doubts about how successful it's going to be, complaining that they just don't have clear objectives and that not a great deal is being accomplished. So if they really want to relaunch their movement, they might have to have a little bit of a think about where it's all going, basically.
Exactly. OK, well, we'll continue to follow them, of course, here on France 24 and see what happens over the next few months. You never know. Might sort of spurt up again, might not. Who knows? That's it from us. Latest news coming up with Louise after the break.